Good evening, folks. Welcome to our exciting session called as Idea Pub. We have with us panel of two mentors, Sanket and Ravikant Sabnavis. Sanket is the lead of Thai Food Network and chief collaborator of Volume Up. Sanket is founder at Volume Up, which helps generate incremental revenue for spare capacity owners within the food industry. He has over a decade experience in the food space. He has sold over 6 million plus meals, done food at 2000 plus events across 14 cities. He is core team lead for Thai Food Network and speaker at United Nations Development Program. With this, I would like to call Sanket to take over.
Thanks, Shabnam. Uh, Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys are eating well and have most of you have taken the dual jabs. More so, hope you guys are eating out most of your meals outside in support of the food industry. Uh, so every time I speak to my business colleagues, the number one concern they face is how to create a brand out of a company that they've made, how to market their products. Today, we have amongst us the man who seems to have the answers to all of this. He's been instrumental in converting various products into iconic brands across categories. I am very excited to welcome and listen to Mr. Ravikant Sabnavis. Ravi is a veteran marketer, a thought leader in the business circles. He's nurtured and grown some iconic brands like Glucon D, Act 2 Popcorn, Kingfisher Beer, Kingfisher Airlines, Force India, Formula One, and Star Prava, uh, which is now the India's number one Marathi entertainment channel. His experience spans over 29 years and with some of the most iconic companies India has produced and the most iconic brands these companies have produced. He's currently the charter member of TIE and CEO of Innovative Oral Care, a startup oral care products company that is part of Clove Dental, India's largest dental clinic chain. He, by the way, loves mentoring and advising startups these days. Uh, Ravi, welcome to this platform. Welcome to the Thai Food Network. So we'll begin with learning through your life journey, and then take some questions from the startups in the second half, if that's okay with you.
Perfect. First of all, Sanket, thank you for the very generous, and flattering introduction, and I'm happy to be a part of this.
Thank you, Ravi. So, Ravi, I wanted to, begin by asking you about a product that, I've been missing eating since almost a year and a half because we've not been going to theaters. So, the first iconic brand you spearheaded was Act 2. I mean, popcorn is literally available on every road and cinema in India. What was your strategy to make this brand known and make it a popular brand in India? I mean, it's literally a household name now. I mean, all of us make it at home. You created a brand out of a commoditized product. Please tell us a little more about this.
Certainly, in fact, part of the answer lies in what you started off with, which is that you said you've not gone to a movie theater in a year and a half. Uh, you know, but ideally, you should have been eating popcorn at home. With watching movies and everything else. But actually, firstly, it's so very true that popcorn was and continues to be available, in every corner, wherever you go, movies, malls, amusement parks, and so on and so forth. And the Act 2 story is a very interesting story. Act 2, incidentally, is the world's largest selling popcorn. And, this was during my stint at Conagra Foods, which in India is called Agrotech Foods. It was essentially an oils company, which made and sold Sundrop oil, which is a leading brand of cooking oil. And with Conagra having entered the country, so we said, let's set up a foods division because Conagra is a very, very large foods company. And we said, we started with Act 2. And interestingly, we started with actually a microwave popcorn, which we were importing directly from the US. Now, In fact, the first challenge, there were many challenges which any startup would have, but I think a very unique challenge was that we decided to launch a microwave popcorn and found, from available data that there were only 5 lakh microwaves in the country at that time, which was in 99. Right.
Okay.
And out of these 5 lakhs, a large part, maybe about 60%, were in institutions like hotels and, bakeries and so on and so forth. So even if, we managed to build awareness and get a consumer to want to buy a pack of popcorn, where would she go and actually make it? Because she didn't have a microwave. Right. Obviously, things have changed dramatically since then. And today there would be very few homes without a microwave, but that was then. And I think that forced us to think in a very disruptive manner. And what we did was, in collaboration with BPL, which at that time was a large, white goods manufacturer, also made, microwaves. We said, can we set up what we call popping points, which are essentially, you place a microwave either in a nice bakery store, or malls were just about coming up. There was Crossroads coming up in Bombay at, Haji Ali. We said, we also went to some movie theaters and said, you can pop these bags of popcorn a little bit in advance because you have only a 10-minute break. And we thought that would be a good way to get consumers to buy a bag of popcorn wherever they are. And, because it's in a sealed bag, it would remain fresh till they got home. And we were amazed to see that within about 6-8 months of putting sustained effort, my sales from the popping points were actually far higher than the sales coming from the retail, which was the good news. That gave us enough confidence to then start working on, a product that eliminated the need for a microwave. So we launched the Act 2 instant popcorn, which could be made in a pressure cooker or any pan, and therefore eliminated the need for a microwave. It was also at the magical price point of 10 rupees, right? But having then spent about a year and a half approximately selling the microwave popcorn and this popcorn, I think it became increasingly clear to us, which goes back to your opening comment, that popcorn is actually an outdoor eating habit. You go out with your family, with friends, you're going to watch a movie, or you're going to an SL World kind of a place, and that's where you're consuming popcorn. So, we needed to be there. And that again needed a lot of effort because, I think the least of the challenges was we needed to give it in a bulk pack from a consumer pack, right? From a 70-gram pack to a 5-kilo pack. How do you ensure standardization? Because you're giving them oil, corn, and seasoning separately, right? The other problem was pricing. We were using the world's best corn. And what movie theaters were using was the cheap local corn, which was at 18 rupees a kilo. And we were wanting to sell it to them at 100 rupees a kilo, right? And I remember one at that time, this was a premium movie theater in Secunderabad, which showed only English movies. He gave me the economics and said, look here, my front bencher spends some 5 rupees on the ticket, 2 rupees on his cycle stand or the scooter stand, and another 2 rupees on a cigarette. Right, and 2 rupees on the popcorn, and he's done in about 10 rupees or 15 rupees or whatever it is, he's done. And you're telling me that you want to sell me the popcorn at 10 rupees a cone. That doesn't work. Okay, so but we started slow, and I think our big breakthrough came when I convinced a theater in Delhi, Liberty. I said, you keep our popcorn, and we branded the machine for him. And this was pure serendipity that India Today, the Delhi edition, published a list of the best theaters in Delhi, right? And this Liberty made it to the top 5. And guess what image they used for the theater? They used, our kiosk. And I think, yes, it was just serendipity, and that we never looked back. So over a 1.5-year period, I set up some 150 locations, including in places like Solan in Himachal, set up a great network. SL World, Inox had just entered the country, and the first multiplex was in Baroda, if I recall. And that's how we moved from a microwave popcorn to the instant popcorn, and then into setting up these vending machines. And I think over a period of time, people realized that this popcorn is streets ahead in terms of quality. Right. So that was, the way we went about building the brand, and finally being there where the consumer consumes the popcorn rather than forcing them to make it at home.
Absolutely. But then, so just to add to it, so how did you get people to buy these popcorns at home? So did you use any call to action mechanism at these popping stations, or was it that habit was, I mean, you habituated people to eating Act 2 on your popping stations, and then they concurrently started buying it at home?
Good question. So I think one of the advantages you have with popcorn is the aroma. Right.
Sure.
And when we started with microwave popcorn, we participated, and, we didn't have too much money at that time. And for whatever reason, at that time, Conagra wasn't willing to invest behind it, but they were okay with us basically deploying whatever money we made in terms of margins to into marketing. So we participated in a lot of exhibitions, right, where families go to and pick up. And I think the advantage we had was when you make a bag of popcorn, it's the aroma and people come, right? That's how we started in the initial days. We then advertised later on television, but on kids channels, because we said let's drive this towards the kids. But we started off very small with participating in exhibitions across. We partnered with Cartoon Network. They had a property called Toon Cricket, which they had in 3 different cities, in Chennai, Mumbai, and Delhi, where a lot of kids came to play with their cartoon characters. So we participated there and did a lot of sampling. So there was a massive amount of sampling that happened at one level to popularize it. But the leap happened when we set up these 150 locations, because then we were there at the movie theaters. Right, we were there at the Apughars and SL Worlds, and then therefore we were there when people were consuming us. So over a period of time, and there's another interesting story I must tell you. So there was a movie theater called Fame Ad Labs in Andheri in Mumbai, and all these guys would ask us for huge sums of money for the branding. They said, listen, we'll buy the popcorn ingredients, but we won't give you branding because Coke pays us this much and Pepsi pays us this much. I said, we're not going to pay you. I said, in their case, the advertising, this is my popcorn. But obviously that wouldn't fly. Finally, I think I remember the ops manager was a very nice guy. So I said, okay, you give me one small glow sign. There was something happening there. A movie fest for 1 week. I said, I'll pay you 7,500 rupees. You keep it for a week. Right. And then I went back to Hyderabad where office was. And when I came again after 2-3 months visiting, I found the glow sign still there. And I couldn't, sort of believe this, because I wasn't obviously paying him for it. So I asked him, listen, how come it's there? He says, you won't believe what's happened. One day a customer walked in to watch a movie along with a popped bag of microwave popcorn. And we stopped him and said, listen, you can't bring outside eatables here. And he turned around and said, listen, you guys serve some rubbish popcorn. I'm bringing in Act 2. It's the world's #1 popcorn, and I'm not eating your popcorn. He says, thankfully, I hadn't yet removed your glow sign that day. He said, I grabbed his hand, took him and said, listen, do you know, we serve Act 2 as well. And for them, that was the moment when realization happened that this is a seriously big brand.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
Yes.
I mean, what better than a customer forcing your partner to keep your brand in there? That is amazing.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I think you guys killed it with the pricing in India. I think obviously even Parle has shown us that what a 5 rupee and a 10 rupee brand can do.
Absolutely.
I mean, a product can do with both Parle G and I think Bisleri initially.
Absolutely. And which is why I said we came at that magical price point of 10 rupees.
Yeah, that was outstanding. Yeah. So moving on to another brand that you've been behind. So I mean, Glucon-D is something that we've been hearing since the time we were kids. I mean, I remember back in the school when there used to be a sports day, they would serve us Glucon-D. I mean, it was considered such a healthy thing. So I mean, that's a brand that you've nurtured. So I remember when I was speaking to you, you particularly mentioned packaging innovations as one of its strengths. So how important do you think is packaging in marketing? And please tell us a little bit more about your journey with the Heinz company.
Sure, sure. So I think as far as how important is packaging, I believe it's very, very important. It's like it's the first touch and feel point for a consumer with a brand. Assuming that the consumer has seen your ad, but that's a fleeting ad, you either hearing a radio jingle or you're seeing it on TV for 10, 20, 30 seconds and so on and so forth. But this is the first point of engagement with a brand. And it's very important that, the packaging grabs the attention of the consumer, conveys the brand values, conveys the benefit that you want it to convey and so on. So I think that's a very important aspect. And coming to the Glucon-D packaging and the Heinz story, this was a very interesting problem. When I joined Heinz on Glucon-D as a marketing manager, this was a 70-year-old brand with a 70% market share, right? And the largest selling pack was this green pack with a family, husband and wife with 2 kids, and we would often joke that it's the same visual that's been there on the pack for so many years that probably the models are no more, okay, because we don't know when it was shot, right? Been around for, that guy was in his 30s and probably it was shot some 40 years back. Nobody had a clue, and we didn't want to change it because this was a brand which got about 50% of sales from rural India, where often it's just the pack graphics. And you don't want to change that, you can't change it very easily. There's a lot of resistance. Now, when I joined, there were 2 problems. One is, of course, given that it was a largely therapeutic brand, which means that people consume it when they're recovering from an illness, or as you say, you come back from the hot sun, during a game of cricket or whatever, then you're consuming it. So sales had stagnated. It was not growing. Right. So that was problem number 1. And the second huge irritant for us, and this sort of touches on the packaging bit, is there were a huge number of lookalikes and spurious brands.
Oh. Yeah.
Right. So you would have something like, misspelled Glucon-D, right, with similar pack graphics. Those are the lookalikes, which are deceptively similar. And some, of course, were rip-offs. So they were fakes. And of course, the ongoing thing was conducting raids, and, pulling these, but they would come up somewhere else. After a month or 2 months of going quiet, you come up somewhere else in the same state. So we took up problem number 1 first, which was, of course, driving growth. And the question was, yes, we understand that this is a therapeutic. So we did a lot of consumer research. But very interesting that our biggest insight, our deep consumer insight came from West Bengal, which was, and I'm guessing continues to be, the single largest market for Glucon-D. So West Bengal behaved in a very different way from the rest of India. So while it was a therapeutic product, across the north and other markets, in West Bengal, and this sounds a little unbelievable, people woke up in the morning and had it instead of tea and coffee, from grandparent to grandchild, right? So it was a wake me up. And a lot of people obviously traveled 40-50 kilometers in the state transport bus to another place for work, so they carried it in their flask. So we said, is there learning in this, and how to positivize it and make it a positive energy drink? So rather than going from -10 to 0 on your scale, which is what it was doing right now, how do you go from 0 to 10, right? Energize yourself in the morning. And then we said, okay, this we will do through introducing more flavors. So, we put our money behind the orange, which existed as a flavor, but we never marketed. Okay, we had a lemony line, which was seriously close to actually Nimbu Pani. And but for whatever reason, it was getting produced at the wrong time, distribution was not good. So we said, let these be the 2 lead packs, to drive growth for Glucon-D. And what we did was we created a sipper pack. So, it's one thing to put your money heft behind flavors, but you can't be in that same pack which for decades has been seen as a medicinal, alternative, so to say. So we created a nice cool sipper in all three flavors, and that sort of changed the imagery and everything else for Glucon-D. And what we did for managing the spurious and the lookalikes is our existing pack, we decided to give it a metallic finish. And we also had a tearaway seal. Right now, what happens is that these guys who are fly-by-night operators, they're not interested in investing too much money behind packaging. Right.
Sure.
So this just created a huge barrier. Right. And for us, it was an additional cost, but it was worthwhile. And we just, so that was the second packaging innovation to address a slightly different problem and of course, refresh the brand. But the first was the sipper pack to, as part of the strategy to move the brand from a therapeutic space to a positive energy space. So I would say that's the key highlight, of the Glucon-D packaging journey.
Very interesting. Just out of curiosity, why didn't Glucon-D ever think of RTD as a vertical as well? The ready-to-drink space. I mean, like from your learnings from West Bengal.
So I think that's a very good question. We were actually looking at a number of new extensions, some of which have seen the light of day, incidentally. So we were looking at a ready-to-drink. We were also looking at a tablet, which is a concentrated Glucon-D, which you just put into water and, it's like a fizzy thing, which I finally saw about, it's been in the market, I think, for at least 2-3 years.
Yeah, I think now it's a fad, the effervescent tablets. I mean, I think every nutraceutical company is doing that.
Yes. Absolutely. And, Glucon-D and a couple of others have had this for at least 2 to 3 years, possibly more. But on the ready to drink, actually, we were looking at a fruit based drink. So it's Glucon-D, but with real fruit powder added in that. And two things happened. We were actually looking at a ready to drink. And I remember we were very gung-ho about it. We had done a lot of development on it, our R&D and myself and the team. And our ad agency actually urged us not to do it. Okay. And because Leo Burnett was our agency, and they said, listen, you are currently in the business of selling, a dry product. The moment you go into a ready to drink, the logistics and supply chain challenges are completely different. Right now, you're not equipped to do it. And what they suggested is, as a step up, why don't you launch a powder, a Glucon-D powder with real fruit powder mixed in it? Right. And that's what they ended up doing then. But by then I had moved out, but so this happened a little later. I think it was called Glucon-D Fruit Power or some such thing, which they launched perhaps I moved out in 2008 or 2009. They launched a Glucon-D with fruit, but it was a powder format. And so that's the reason for staying away from our RTD.
Got it. Interesting. So before I move from an energy drink to the drink that I think all of us love, the Kingfisher that you work with, there's one question that I thought I'll just like quickly take. I mean, I think this is more from your Act 2 pricing. Do you think the correct pricing, I mean, that low price point in India solves half your marketing worries? I mean, like a 10 rupee price point, does it solve like half your marketing worries in India, or marketing apart from the price point is a different ballgame altogether?
I think price point is very important across categories, right? Sure. But I'm consciously breaking up the answer in two parts. So if you say, is a price point important? I think it's very important, whether it's for a car or whether it is for a pack of biscuits or for, a popcorn. That said, all answers don't lie in having a very low price point. Right? That's not necessarily going to ensure sales. You need to deliver value. I know I'm venturing into some other territory right now, but if you look at the Nano, right? That
Absolutely.
was at
Yeah.
a very low
Yeah.
price point, but
Sure.
the consumer did not see value in it. Keep aside the fact that there were issues with the car and other things, but the consumer did not see value. The consumer must see value in your offering.
No, absolutely. That makes sense. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if the customer doesn't perceive it to be a good product, it doesn't make sense. Yes. So, anyways, uh, moving on to moving on to your journey with the UB group of companies. So you spent 8 years with the UB group. Uh, uh, I think it just shows the fact that from entering the company as a marketing head to being invited to being on the board of one of the group companies, it just shows how important persistence is. So please tell us a little bit about your journey across various companies within the UB group you worked with.
Sure. So, well, very interestingly, I think if I were to sort of sum up my experience, in one or two words, I sort of can't help but recall the opening words from, Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities, right? Which is that, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was a season of light, it was a season of darkness. So,
Wow.
I've seen both, right? And there's been tremendous learning, from the light. There's been a lot of learning from the darkness. So that's, I think, one this thing. But if I were to go in a step, fashion, just to address your question. So the first 3 years of my 8 years in the UB group were at United Breweries, which is the beer company. I used to head marketing, and we were driving a lot of innovation. In fact, uh, one of the products that you're seeing over the last couple of years is the Heineken Zero, which is a zero alcohol beer, and that's something that I was championing at that time. Perhaps it was a little too early for the organization to look at back then in 2007-8, but I think over the last 2 years, every beer company has a zero alcohol beer.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think the single biggest challenge at that time was here was a 42-43% share company, which was suddenly had an onslaught of premium brands from overseas like Carlsberg and Budweiser. So the challenge was, how do we continue to grow share? Okay, despite these pre-sold premium brands coming in, right? And I think that was one big challenge. And I think the second shift that was happening is that increasingly people were gravitating towards strong beer. At that point in time, 75% of beer sales came from strong beer as opposed to mild beer, right? So we did two things. One is to address competition like Carlsberg and Bud. We worked on, and I finally launched Kingfisher Ultra. Okay, this was in September 09. I launched it just before moving to Kingfisher Airlines. So that was the big one, because we said, if we need to fight these guys with Carlsberg and Bud with a more premium product, right? So that was one. The other is,
Sure.
of course, to identify some of our champion brands, because some of these are regional brands but very strong. So we had London Pilsner, right? Mumbaikars would be familiar with LP. So we said, given that, so there was a lot of equity, and we said, let's launch a London Pilsner strong, because if the market is moving strong, here is a brand with existing equity. So let's fight that battle with an LP strong, right? In Karnataka, UB Export was a very big brand. So we said, let's launch a UB Export strong, right? And you had a long-standing brand ambassador there, Upendra, who's a very well-known Kannada actor. So he was the brand ambassador, and obviously his presence spanned across the variants, right? So that was one part. And I think one of the most exciting initiatives there was actually spanned about 2 weeks. As you probably know, Kingfisher is the Good Times partner to multiple IPL teams. And at that time, we were a Good Times partner to 5 of the 8 teams. And of course, for us, value came from being present in various stadiums. right? Where it was there in the refrigerators there, various times now. And 2 weeks before IPL season 2, we realized that the venue shifted to South Africa. And the question was that, we were not in South Africa as a brand, and what can we do in, 14 to 15 days time to ensure that we can develop a product, get the labeling done as per local regulations, and have it available at all the stadiums across South Africa. So, since we were sort of, I had a visa, and, we were getting our wine from there. So I got onto the next flight. My R&D guy joined, probably 3-4 days later. And, in 14 days, we managed to get a beer brewed as per our specifications, got the labeling done. And it literally screeched in on the evening of the IPL opening party. So the party began at 7 and we brought it in at 5 and then ensured that all the stadia had it. So that was another interesting challenge there. And then, of course, I think, as I mentioned earlier, my second stint was as, a dual role as head of marketing for Kingfisher Airlines and as the global head of marketing for the Force India Formula One team. Again, two very distinct and different categories. I think at Kingfisher, I learned to face adversity. Right. I mean, after all, if we ask ourselves, how many of us would have experienced, a large company, a large airline, crash landing with 7,000 employees on board, right? And so
Absolutely.
I think that's a big one, and I think
must have been tough.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. What it taught me personally is, when you fall, make sure you fall on your back so that when you get up, just dust yourself and get going again, right? But of course, the experience was awesome. And the third part, of course, was with Force India, a very, very distinct category. At one level, it taught me to work with multiple cultures. There was the the racing team, which was based out of Silverstone in the UK. We were based in India, right? And for us, it was a category building exercise insofar as India was concerned. So we actually, what we did was, we had created experiences in India from pit stop challenges where you had to change the tires of a Formula One car in the least possible time. We had screenings at places like Hard Rock Cafe and so on and so forth, and actually flew people to the races as a reward. And the whole idea was that how do we get fan engagement and therefore improve value, which will then help in getting sponsorships for the team. There had to be a commercial value at the end of it. And when the Saharas came on board as a co-owner, I became a permanent invitee on the board. So, which gave me a very different exposure of seeing what is the technology and the kind of investments which go in the range of $100 million into building a Formula One team. And the last 2 years before I left, while I continued, the airline had suspended operations. In addition to the Formula One, the Force India role, I was asked to turn around a magazine business, which was owned by Mr. Malia. They had titles like Cine Blitz. And the problem was that when the airline crashed, so did the revenue from this magazine. So I had to turn it around, find new sources of business. And then, I pushed it in the direction of into the digital space. I said, directionally, we need to go there. Print will die at some point in time, but let brands like Cineblitz live on in a digital avatar. Yeah, so that sort of sums up my 8 years at UB.
No, I mean, you've in the last 5 minutes, you've summed up your UB journey so well with some such amazing and inspiring anecdotes. I mean, I think that was outstanding. You actually got Kingfisher to South Africa in like 14 days. That's like really thinking on the feet. And then, of course, your hardships with Kingfisher Airlines. I think we'll need to do a separate webinar just with your UB group journey, just to understand a lot more about it. Yeah. So, anyways, in the interest of time, I'll move on from UB group to your stint with a regional play, which was Star Pravah. Interesting, I've seen that these regional news channels or newspapers, there's a lot to learn from them. I mean, I think I'd read about another newspaper, a regional news play in one of those 11 breakthrough innovations. I mean, that was also a very inspiring story. This Star Prava journey of yours is a very inspiring story. So, what made you enter such a competitive sector? I mean, what made you join Star Prava? It was such a competitive space, and please tell us a little bit about this part of the journey.
So, Star and I were talking to each other, and at that time, I was trying to turn around this magazine business, as I mentioned to you. And the specific challenge at Star Prava was exactly the same. So, it was launched in 2008, with much fanfare, and about 3 odd years later, it saw brief success. It became a leader in the category briefly for about a year and a half or so. But after that, it just crashed. And it had been struggling since. So I thought, this would be an interesting challenge to take up. Well, as it would happen, I think this was possibly the toughest problem I have attempted to solve. Right. And I think what happened was first was trying to understand what the problem is, because the fact that it's now a back marker, a number 3, number 4 channel is only the outcome of whatever inputs went in. And I, for which we needed to understand who exactly is the Marathi Manus, right? How does she think? How have relationships evolved over a period of time? Because after all, we are in the business of telling imaginative stories and telling them in a relatable way, right? They see a slice of themselves. People watch serials because they see a slice of their own lives, right? Which is why if you see the difference between movies, I mean, there are many differences, but one difference is that when you go to watch a movie, you're going for the star. So you know that you're going to watch a Salman Khan movie or a Mahesh Babu movie, right? Whereas in shows, you remember the names of the characters. Very often, you don't know who the actors are.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. And we needed to first understand that. So we spent a lot of time, my team and I, in going into different parts of Maharashtra, talking to consumers. We didn't stop there. We also met literators, we met writers, historians. I also met a lawyer. This lady actually dealt with domestic issues, and a large part of her clientele were Marathi families, because we wanted to understand how relationships have evolved and what are the stress points today. So that was one part of the exercise. And I think the tougher challenge was, how do we get now a solution and how do we go about executing a solution? Because that would then involve creating a whole new ecosystem, an ecosystem of new content, content leadership, content partners, because they're produced by by outside producers, and then marketing. Right. And we also needed to fix distribution because we realized that there were gaps in the distribution as well. And I think we started making step changes. And I think literally this business was rebuilt brick by brick. We took it to a certain stage. At which point in time, sometime in 2018, I realized that, if the backbone of any channel is content, then we need to do something disruptive insofar as the content leadership is concerned. You need a disruptive content head, right? And I then, met up with a very, very well-known, well-established Marathi movie director. And I told myself that I will not hire from within the television space because they're going to think of more of the same. So I actually met this Marathi movie director. His name is Satish Rajwade. Some of you may have heard his name. His most recent movie before he joined Star was Mumbai, Pune, Mumbai. It's a series of 3, Mumbai, Pune 1, 2, and 3. So he was finishing that movie off and we chatted and I said, listen, why don't you join me in my dream of taking this channel to a number 1 position? And, let's create some magic together. So I actually managed to convince him to leave behind his world of movies, right, and come join us. And I think, together, along with, my marketing thought partner, we started chipping away, getting better stories, getting more relatable stories, doing some very, very imaginative marketing. And finally, by February 2020, which is about a year and a half back, we brought it to a number 2 position. Right.
Wow.
And that's when I said, okay, it's time to look at my new challenge. So after a few months more, I exited from Star, but I left satisfied that, I had sort of done the turnaround. And then after, of course, the lockdown ended, the momentum and whatever good work the teams continued to do, it went to a number 1 position after that.
Interesting, very interesting. So since you use the word, since you stressed on the word creating a distribution while talking about your journey here, I wanted to ask you. So, is it important to create a superb distribution network before upping your marketing game, or should it happen concurrently? Like what comes first?
If I were to start a new channel, right, and which means I'm already putting in money. So if I were to start this channel, were to go live tomorrow, let's say, I need to be available first. Otherwise, sure. I've already sunk in money. I'm spending a certain amount on various things, including content and this, that, and the other.
But I actually meant from both the channels and the products perspective. I mean, I meant from okay. From even media and yeah.
So I personally think, and I'm for this thing, but you need to create distribution takes time. You need people, you need infrastructure, then you need to have conversations with, retailers or with cable operators in the context of content, or with retail in the context of this. So it's a time consuming process. And it is always a chicken and egg situation, because the retailer is going to say that, listen, how much money are you spending on ads? Right? What's the ad that's coming tomorrow? He's not interested in what's going to come 30 days from now. So there is a challenge there, but I personally think that first we need to have our distribution, even if it is limited distribution.
Got it. Makes sense. So after, I think Star Prava gave you the tag of a turnaround specialist. So what after this? What made you kind of join a startup? You always worked with the biggest of corporates, the biggest of brands. So, how is it being at the helm of affairs of a startup right now? Of course, it's a big startup, but it's still an MSA. It's still a medium-scale company in front of all the companies that you work with. So, what provoked you to take this challenge at this juncture of your life?
So, I while I was still at Star, answer is actually fairly simple. I kept asking myself, what will give me joy? And my mind went back to my Conagra days when I launched Act 2, and I realized that I get, as a person, the maximum joy for me is when I create something from the scratch, right? I remember, in Act 2 when we said, okay, we'll start this vending business, but we didn't even know how to go about it. Right. I would keep staring at that Excel sheet every day when I was trying to create a commercial model, saying how should the pricing be, what kind of packs, because we didn't know where to start. Right. But that, looking back, there was a lot of joy even in those small things. And so for a period of time, I was thinking that joy will come when I start something, and when this dental group and I started talking to each other. And so you're right, it's not a small startup, but it's a yes and no, because the brand Clove Dental is India's and Asia's largest dental clinic chain. They've been around for 10 years. They have some 340 clinics across 24 cities, all major cities except Mumbai and Kolkata. Right. But the FMCG oral care products was absolutely new to the founder. And I thought that to create something from the scratch, this is a company that's never sold a product. They've sold dental treatments to patients, but they've never actually manufactured or sold a product. So when I joined them in December 2020, I was the first employee, and while of course, like you said, it's a large organization, a lot of resources are shared, but, we've now grown to some 4, full-time people dedicated only to this, and we are scaling up gradually. But the joy of doing everything from manufacturing to creating commercial processes to getting listed on a big basket on Amazon and seeing that, you made it to Amazon's hot seller list in the top 10 within 2 months of launch by barely spending any money, there's a special joy in it. And I think it was looking back at my own experience and saying that this is something that would give me joy is what made me take this plunge, to answer your question.
Very interesting. So for a lot of people who out here who do not know, so Ravi is a very active charter member of TIE, and he loves advising and mentoring startups that he takes liking to in his free time. I mean, he basically takes out time. He doesn't have any free time. So Ravi, I think let's do a little bit of what you really love as a passion. I mean, if you're fine with it, let's call some startups on screen. Let's hear their ideas, and let's try and help them validate their ideas. If you
Certainly.
Yeah. So Aniket, I think there was this.
Yeah, sure.
There was this couple, right? Kapil and Siddhant.
Kevin and Siddhant, right?
Yeah, and there was this one couple who was pinging on this. He wanted to speak about some valid. He wanted to get his idea valid.
I think.
Anyways, yeah, we'll go by your.
Okay. So Kevin is on the call. Kevin, you can start asking a question.
Yeah, hi Ravi sir. It was quite nice hearing through your journey.
Thank you.
Actually, I was looking at nuts and dry fruit market in India, which is quite a large market, but extremely commoditized. Most of it is sold in loose packaging. So I was thinking of creating a brand out of it. And at the moment, I'm doing market research, as in where to position this brand. For example, what to choose exactly, whether to make it like Lindt, those Swiss chocolates, little bit luxury kind of positioning, or whether to go for that should look something economical, like let's say Cadbury. It is not economical, but it's not a luxury positioning when we see the chocolate market. So whether to play around like a Cadbury or like Lindt for nuts and dry fruits. So my question would be, how would you go about market research and for taking this decision of positioning the brand?
Good question. I think the first thing to do would be to have a clear articulation of your problem statement. And the second is to, have a good market research agency, which can be your thought partner. I myself have done this in the past, where I would simply brainstorm, rather than say, okay, can you do this research for me? I would say, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. What do you think? And then a solution will evolve in terms of what is the ideal research technique to do that. And just as an aside, that's also the reason why, I'm still in touch with these people after 15, 20 years, because they've helped me solve problems from a research perspective, since that's your question. So one is put the problem, articulate the problem. And I think if I were to just go forward a little bit, from your research, you must be able to get, where is the gap in the consumer's mind? Is there a problem that's currently not being addressed? Right? It's very important that you define for yourself before you launch this product, that what is going to give you the right to win, right? What are you solving for the consumer at a functional level, and what are you solving for her at an emotional level? And if you have answers to those questions, then first it will make you consider or reconsider your product mix, and it will, whether it's your packaging, product mix, and your positioning, those answers will flow from there. So I would recommend that, state your problem very, very clearly, go through it, bounce it off a few people, and then talk to an agency who is willing to be a thought partner rather than just a, research agency on commercial terms. Does that answer your question? I mean,
Yes.
I know it's
Yes,
just about limited time, but we could potentially chat later and,
Yeah,
for
sure.
a more detailed
Actually, I was
thing.
unable to unmute. That's why. Yes, that was quite helpful.
Okay.
Right. Kevin, is there anything else that you want to add, or can we move to the next guy?
Yes, I can ask one more question. So I have two options at the moment, whether to go for a lean startup approach where, launching different sorts of options, looking at market reactions, or whether to go for, doing on-desk marketing research and launching it when everything is perfect. What would you suggest? Whether to go do a quick launch, test couple of things, and then do a perfect launch, or whether to wait, do a proper research and yeah.
Good question. So one view is that you get only one impression, one chance to make the first impression. And it's very important that if you put out a proposition in the market, then it should be at least 80% right, if not 100% right. That's one view. However, large companies like P&G and HUL have over years, chosen to test market their products in select markets. I remember when I was doing my engineering, this was between 86 and 90 in Vizag, right? That was the test launch ground for both P&G and HUL. So, we've seen Ariel and Astral, which was a soap from HUL at that time, Lasonsi, which was another soap, oval shaped soap they were all launched in Vizag first. But that said, there was a terrific amount of R&D they were already done, right? They would have already tested a marketing mix. I mean, they were already created a marketing mix and they said, let's just test it in Vizag, in one market, happened to be Vizag. And depending on the results, they will either scale it up to the rest of the country or not launch the product at all. And obviously some of them made it and some of them didn't make it. But I would recommend that don't go in blind. I would say that have a plan B, but it should be a plan A and plan B should be both backed by consumer insights. You should have a very good reason to launch product A and product B. I would not recommend, because what's happening is as a startup, you're also spending money. You just can't put out 2-3 options there. You're spending money on distribution, you're spending on packaging. So you're burning cash every day.
Absolutely. So maybe, if I may just add, I may just add to what Ravi said. So, I mean, I've been like a startup guy for like over a decade now. So Kevin, in the startup world, I don't think there's any perfect time to launch. I'd read in one of those books, if I remember right, it's Atomic Habits. If you think you have got a product market fit which is between 40 and 70%, right, you need to launch, learn, go back, measure, rebuild, and then relaunch. I think that's the approach that you'll have to take if you're going the lean way, and if you like low on funds. I think that's how you should do. And since you are in the dry fruit and nut space, and like you already rightly know that it's a very commoditized market. So remember one thing, that in India, people consume familiarity and communicate newness. So you'll have to ensure that your that energy bar that you're talking about, or whatever that you're making, which is loaded with dry fruits and nuts, it communicates newness, but then people realize that they're consuming familiar things, because our nannies and daddies used to tell us wo badam bhigo ke khana and all of that. So they've done half your work, so you have to use them as your marketeers and grow your brand probably. Over to you, Ravi. And Kevin, I think if we are done with answering, maybe we can move to the next guy, if that's okay with you.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was very clarifying, and maybe I can connect later. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Aniket, who's the next guy?
Yeah. So other one is Siddhant Patel. Siddhant is on call. I would request him to come on video. And hello, Siddhant.
Yes, Siddhant, go ahead.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so actually, we are working. So our startup is called Renovate, and we are working on a startup that actually organizes the unorganized street food in India. So post COVID, people are actually not willing to eat outside, and that is where we think like there's a huge market because in India, about 65% of the food services market is unorganized, whereas 35% is like owned by the branded QSRs, and also the people who are traveling into the country, they don't want to eat at the branded QSRs, right? They want to taste the local food, and also like people who are low on budget, they are willing to eat outside on the street food, and people are not willing to take that risk now, especially after COVID. So actually, we are working on standardizing and organizing that street food. So what would be a tip to really convince those small street food owners to actually legalize their business, because like many of them are illegal as well. The setup is illegal, and what would you like advise? Like, how should we go about in convincing them?
Sanket, would you like to go first? I'm happy to share my
Sure.
view.
Sure. So, Siddhant, I think in India, I think rather than educating those street hawkers to become more hygienic, in fact, you should use them to your advantage, is what I feel. They've already done the part of educating the consumer like you and I to eat that bhel puri or that vada pav or whatever. So why don't you just take that category and create a brand out there? So, I mean, just take a leaf out of what Goli Vada Pav did, or what a Jumbo King did, or in fact what Wow Momos did. Wow Momo created a brand out of Kolkata. I mean, Kolkata Momos is like the Vada Pav there. I mean, nobody in Maharashtra needs education on Vada Pav. Look, Goli Vada Pav probably created 100, 200 crore brand there. I'm sure Jumbo King also is on those lines. If Goli and Jumbo would have gone and tried to convince the street hawkers to, become more hygienic, I don't think they would have ever reached this stage. So, instead of trying to convince them to become hygienic, you rather pick a category out of the street and, create a brand which, with a little more automation and add your hygiene elements to it, and try and create a brand out there, because they've already done the hard work of reaching the palates of the consumer. So you have a lot of consumers, use them, create a brand there, is what I would say. Ravi,
So
over to you. Oh, sorry, Siddhant. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so actually, I wanted to say something that if we take just one product, so we can just do like how Wow Momo is working just with momos, right? And Goli Vada Pav is just working with Vada Pav. But what we want to do is that we want to uh, make those street food stalls like a brand in themselves, maybe just like organize them and just aggregate them on our platform. Like we can give them the help, like we can promote their stalls on social media, so we can market it for them, we can brand it for them, we can also help them in creating the menu as well. So what we want to do is that we want to empower them, and we want to create them into a brand, either instead of us taking just a product and creating a brand ourselves.
Yeah, look, I just saw Naveen's comment there. And I think he's right. It is the oification of street food. See, I think Oyo has clearly spent tons of money to try and upgrade those hotels. It has obviously come at a price. They're not 100% perfect. There are issues, which have been around in terms of whether they maintain quality or not. I can give you my personal experience that when I set up these 150 stalls, these 150 popcorn vending machines, right? We wanted to standardize quality, right? From the amount of, the seasoning they use, the amount of oil and the amount of corn. But, obviously these guys had a mind of their own. They had economics behind it. they would obviously use less of one and less of the other. The second was hygiene and all that. So I still remember I had given aprons to all these people. We said, look, you need to wear those gloves, those plastic gloves, you need to wear aprons branded Act 2. Right. And I still remember this. I had gone to Bangalore on a market visit, and to my horror, this chap was cleaning the table with that apron. Right. So, and the challenge is, as Sanket said, is with hygiene and other things, you are trying to create behavioral change, which becomes challenging. You can do it with one, you can do it with two, right? And there are those who've done it. But when you want to scale up and have 100 people, as in my case, the thing, suddenly it becomes very challenging. Of course, Oyo is a success story, and I accept that. But it will come with its own challenges in terms of both effort and money.
Yes, sir.
And Siddhant, I mean, if you're like trying to solve a problem, first just go and speak to your customer who's actually the street food vendor. Is that his real problem? Like, does he even need to sell on Zomato and Swiggy? Because, probably if you walk to a street food vendor, he's selling 700, 800 SKUs a day. So does he even have the time to sell on Zomato and Swiggy? Does he even need a digital menu? So you need to first find out if you are, if there is a pain, then create a painkiller. I mean, if there's no pain, and if you create multivitamins, I'm not sure how many people are going to, consume that. So you'll have to see that as well. I mean, in the interest of confidentiality, I know of a VC who used to love a legacy brand in Bombay. He tried to kind of make them hygienic and scale them up. So he was telling me that, they used to wear gloves only when he would visit the stall. So he got them to like 5 stalls from one. And now, they all those other 4 stalls have wound up, and it's just that one stall which works. And of course, I'm pretty sure that one stall must be doing, I don't know, some 40-50 lakh rupees a month of business. I mean, I don't want to name that brand, but I mean, it's a phenomenally popular brand in Bombay. But anyways, I'm pretty sure you must have spoken to a few of them, and let's hope you can make them hygienic. We have one more guy, right?
No, Sanket, we had to.
There was this couple who was pinging. You want to pull Kapil up if he's there? He had actually pinged twice or thrice. He wanted to kind of ask a question. Is Kapil there?
Yes, Kapil is there.
Yeah. So let's just take him as the last guy, and then we'll wind up.
I think unfortunately, Sanket, due to shortage of time, there were a bunch of questions that I can see on the chat which we've not been able to address. But I suppose.
Hi, Vikrant. Kapil this side. So I'm from Delhi. So I have been into startup. I have not been able to open up my video. If the host can enable it, the video.
Yeah, sure, Kapil.
Yeah, so hi Vikrant, hi Sanket, nice to meet you all. It was good to listen to you. So I'm into startups, I'm into technology. I have been into technology for somewhere around 12 years. It still was my first company. Then for some time, I am running my own software development firm as well in Delhi NCR. I belong to Faridabad, that comes in NCR, Faridabad, Gurugram, Haryana. So, so far into startups, I have done something which did not proceeded actually. But still I'm trying and trying to do more things. So I have some good innovations in different streams, which I will be looking forward, which I'm building up. Into food tech, I'll say I have a concept I would want to share with you to validate it, and all of the other listeners, if they would like to, if they like it and they want to join in any terms. So the thing is, I mean, I look to start as a famous. Okay, I'll speak in Hindi, that will be more comfortable. तो सर प्रोसेस ये है कि भाई जहाँ की जो भी चीज फेमस है उस चीज का को ऑनलाइन ऑर्डर करने का एक वो, जैसे मैं दिल्ली से हूँ तो यहाँ के चांदनी चौक के पराठे फेमस है, मूलचंद के छोले कुलचे फेमस है, और हर जगह की कोई ना कोई चीज फेमस होती है. एक स्ट्रीट वेंडर होता है, कोई दुकानदार होता है, कोई भी होता है जिसकी अपनी एक डिश फेमस होती है और दूर दूर से लोग वहाँ पे वो चीज खाने के लिए आते हैं. तो प्रोस्पेक्ट ये है कि खाने के लिए लोग जाते हैं, लेकिन कई बार डिस्टेंस ज्यादा होता है। जैसे यहाँ फरीदाबाद से लोग 35 किलोमीटर दूर गुड़गांव में कहीं कुछ जाते हैं, या कहीं कहीं की कुछ कुछ चीजें फेमस है एनसीआर में भी, तो लोग दूर दूर से आते हैं उन जगहों पे खाने के लिए। तो होता क्या है कि लोग अक्सर जाते हैं, लेकिन कभी कभी डिस्टेंस या कोई ड्यू टू एनी अदर मैटर्स दे वांट टू, भाई खाना तो है, उन्हें मन तो है खाने का, लेकिन जा नहीं पाते हैं। तो बट आई वाज लुकिंग फॉर टू स्टार्ट एन ऑर्डरिंग ऐप, फूड ऑर्डरिंग ऐप, जिसपे कि जहाँ जहाँ की जो जो चीज फेमस हो, हम वो चीज ही वहाँ पे उसको प्रोवाइड कराएंगे। तो ये कंसेप्ट था एक। तो मुझको लगा कि हाँ अच्छा है भाई, चीज तो सही है, चलानी चाहिए। बट मुझे लगा कि इससे बात भी होनी चाहिए। अब जब तक डिस्कस नहीं होगा, आप ऑलरेडी फूड्स में हैं, फूड स्टार्टअप में, और भी बहुत सारे लोग जो हु ऑल आर द लिसनर, दे आल्सो लुकिंग टू स्टार्ट समथिंग। तो मैंने कहा एक बार बात हो तो आपके भी फीडबैक हो कि ठीक है कि नहीं है। तो आप बताएं थोड़ा इस पे।
देखिए, आइडिया तो बहुत बढ़िया है, बट इफ आई एम नॉट मिस्टेकन, देर आर कपल ऑफ एप्स ऑलरेडी डूइंग दिस। और मुझे इसीलिए मालूम है क्योंकि आई थिंक अबाउट मे बी 2 years बैक, अप्रोक्सीमेटली गिव और टेक 6 months, मैंने ऑर्डर किया है। सो देयर इज दिस ऐप, आई डोंट नो व्हाई इट्स जस्ट गॉन आउट ऑफ माय माइंड। व्हेन यू वर टॉकिंग आई वाज थिंकिंग हार्ड। सो ही वुड से दैट, जो बिल्कुल आपका ही कॉन्सेप्ट है, it's not street food, but they are famous stores, right? So for example, like you said, Roshan Di Gulfi or Evergreen Sweets. So this guy is aggregated from various things, and he says, all this you can come. This is famous in Delhi. This is famous from Jaipur. This is famous from, let us say, Vishakhapatnam, and so on and so forth. There is somebody already doing it. There could be more, but this website I have ordered from.
अच्छा सर, नाम बताइए तो आपको याद आए तो। और दूसरा,
हाँ,
स्टोर्स जो आप कह रहे हैं, मतलब हम तो देखे हैं कि समथिंग यू कैन ईट, आई मीन रेडी टू ईट, जो हमारे पड़ोस में होता है, सेम सिटी में होता है, या जब सिर्फ आसपास के शहरों में होता है। जैसे आप मुंबई में है तो नवी मुंबई तक हो गया, इससे दूर तो नहीं, वरना खाना ठंडा हो जाएगा, जो भी चीज मंगाई होगी उसका स्वाद चला जाएगा। तो प्रोस्पेक्ट तो यही है। और इवन द इंटरफेस जो इसका रहेगा, जो इवन मोबाइल ऐप का जो एक फ्लो रहेगा, वो भी मैंने एक अच्छा डिजाइन किया है एक्चुअली। मतलब एज पर कि भाई इसका नाम भी हम फेमस रखेंगे। मतलब ये है कि वही फेमस स्टार्टिंग विद पी, तो ये एक पिक्चर का नाम भी था फेमस एक्चुअली। तो इट्स ऑल अबाउट व्हाट इज फेमस।
और Kapil ji, in fact, one of the first few people to do this was actually in Hyderabad. This was done some, I think, 7-8 years back at least, if not more. This is Halim. I don't know how many of you are familiar that when you know, people break their fast during Ramzan, right? This is a mix of you know, minced meat and lots of dry fruits and lots of ghee. Right, really, really high cal, and it's a very popular street food in Hyderabad. And also, of course, what happens is, because people go out, there's very multicultural. There is a big market for veg halim as well, which I've tasted since I'm vegetarian. I had, when I was in Hyderabad, I tried the veg version of halim. So these guys, I think it was Almond House or somebody, I'm not able to recall. They started tied up with Speed Post, if I recall. This was many years back, and said you can order from anywhere now.
Yeah, they deliver anywhere during Ramzan within 48 hours across the world. And by the way, they do a business of 7 crores in those 40 days.
Wow.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
It's worth doing.
So just to add, I mean, just to like add to what Ravi told you, Kapil. तो Kapil, I think idea आपका मतलब बहुत brilliant है, because आपने जब वो idea बोला तो आप देखिए chat में comments की बौछार हो गई है. So and जहाँ आप nostalgia को touch करोगे, you know, that idea is a killer idea. Look at Paperboat. वो आपके यादों पे उसने शायद 600-700 करोड़ का ब्रांड बना लिया है. इनफैक्ट एक कंपनी जो आपको देखनी चाहिए, वो यूएस में, वो कंपनी का नाम है गोल्ड बेली. ये एग्जैक्टली वो कर रही है जो आप कर, आई मीन मैं अज्यूम कर रहा हूँ आप यही बोल रहे हो ना कि दिल्ली का खाना पूरे इंडिया में डिलीवर करोगे, कि खाली आप दिल्ली में डिलीवर करोगे?
नहीं सर, देखिए ना, इस पे कंसेप्ट ये होता है कि जो पर्सन जहाँ रहता होता है, उसका एक आबो हवा जिसे हम कहते हैं, उसका माइंडसेट, उसका टेस्ट उस जगह के हिसाब से डेवलप होता है. हाँ, आप दिल्ली से आप हैदराबाद जाते हैं, बेंगलोर जाते हैं, तो बेंगलोर में अलग अलग दुकानें फेमस होंगी अलग चीजों के लिए, है ना. इवन वहाँ का फूड भी अलग ही होता है. साउथ इंडियन फूड इज डिफरेंट, राजस्थान का खाना अलग है, नॉर्थ इंडिया का अलग है. तो ये है कि भाई जो चीज जहाँ की फेमस है हमारे शहर में, आप मुंबई में है तो मुंबई में जी मैं जानता नहीं एक्चुअली नाम तो, लेकिन होंगे तो सही, इसमें तो कोई दो राय नहीं है कि आपकी अंधेरी की कोई चीजें फेमस होंगी, वाशी में कुछ फेमस होगा। हर एक नाम नाम से ही लोग मंगाते हैं तो एक्चुअली, तो ये जो इंडिया का कल्चर है मुझे लगा कि ये सही है, इसको आगे बढ़ाते हैं। और आप देखिए इफ यू लाइक इट, थैंक यू फ्रॉम
देखिए
माय साइड।
आइडिया तो बढ़िया है। सी यू नो आई एम इन दिल्ली, एवरीबडी यू नो व्हेन आई टॉक टू समबडी इन बॉम्बे दे आर सेइंग यार वो पराठे वाली गली में जान, हैव यू गॉन एंड सो ऑन एंड सो फोर्थ। नाउ इफ you know Kapil ji is able to provide that to Mumbaikars, saying that I will get you parathe wali, you don't have to fly down to Delhi, you sit in Bombay or Vizag or wherever and have it. The idea is splendid, obviously others have done it.
तो वी
और ये ज्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग तब होगा जब आप इसको आप वो सिटी के बाहर शिप कर पाओगे, क्योंकि जिस जो जो विद इन दिल्ली मिस करता है वो तो ट्रैवल करके चले जाएगा। तो इंडिया में मतलब 130 करोड़ इंडियंस है, करीब 600 करोड़ मील्स खाते हैं हम लोग रोज। अगर हम 4 मील्स पकड़े तो उसमें से करीब 1 करोड़ तो नॉस्टैल्जिक मील्स खाने का मन करता है, वो मिलते नहीं है। तो अगर आप वो कैटर कर सकते हो, ये बहुत बड़ा मार्केट हो सकता है, बट ऑफ कोर्स यू हैव टू फिगर आउट कि वो पहुंचेगा कैसे।
करेक्ट।
नहीं ठीक है, मैं आई एम नॉट अ फूडी एक्चुअली, आई टेल यू मतलब पर्सनली, ये तो मैं टेक्नोलॉजी में हूँ, स्टार्टअप्स में हूँ, बिजनेस में हूँ। और हाँ, अगर जैसा कि आपने कहा कि मुंबई में कोई है जैसे है कि भाई दिल्ली का कुछ खाया जाए, तो ये तो बहुत अच्छा वो है, मतलब दैट इज वेरी गुड, आई सी इट, मतलब ये तो बहुत अच्छा वो है, मतलब हम तुम भेजेंगे, इट्स ओनली अबाउट ट्रैवलिंग एंड सेंडिंग द थिंग्स, सो इट कैन बी डन। So I will be happy if we can I mean take it forward as well. I mean we can talk कि कैसे हम इस पे वर्कआउट कर सकते हैं।
Sure.
If you feel it is good to do, right? And with the other का मानना है, मतलब मैं यहाँ हरियाणा से हूँ, हम तो ऐसे ही सोचते हैं कि भाई टास्क करते हैं तो ठीक है। मोस्ट वेलकम टू ऑल ऑफ द पीपल हु आर कमेंटिंग इन द बॉक्सेस, मोस्ट वेलकम टू कनेक्ट एंड लेट्स डू इट, लेट्स मेक इट समथिंग। तो हाँ ये था।
Thank you Kapil, all the best.
हाँ थैंक यू,
All the best.
थैंक यू।
So Ravi, before I close the session, there was this one question that I wanted to ask you on behalf of the food industry. So a few months ago, I was asking the CMO of that discounting the cloud kitchen space will vouch, and I mean kind of validate what I'm saying. So Murli, who happens to be the CMO of Wow Momos, he told me a very interesting thing that discounting is like riding a tiger. You get off it, the tiger will eat you off. So I mean, since I think you are a veteran marketeer, I wanted to take your viewpoint on this. Like how much sense does discounting make? I mean, how much sense does discounting make as a marketing tool? And should it even be used as a marketing tool?
Good question. I think the answer to the last one is the easiest. There's no using discounting, right? But I think what is more important is to ensure that whatever is your base pricing, right, it must capture the value that you're offering to the consumer. Don't underprice, right? Time to time, and I think Indian consumers, so also consumers globally, are used to discounts from time to time, right? And there is no harm potentially participating in that. But you need to have your, a solid foundation, and therefore your base pricing, when I say base pricing, I mean the non-discounted pricing, that's what I mean, has to truly reflect the kind of value that you want to build for yourself as a brand. So you need to be very clear that I'm in this for the long term. I want to make this an enduring brand and not something which is faddish and, I'll create something and after 2 years I'll sell out. Right. And if you take that approach, then you'll make sure that you're priced right. That's one part. The other part is continuous discounting, according to me, erodes the value of a brand.
Absolutely.
It just completely erodes. You will see short-term gain, right? You might see sales going up, and that's where you need to draw that line and say that, do not sacrifice your long-term brand building for a short-term gain. You need to price yourself right. You can occasionally discount, but make sure you're not otherwise you'll be branded as this is a discounted brand.
Absolutely.
And there are fairly well-known big brands that are there pan-India, which have gone down that path. And you talk to people, they'll say, yeah, I buy that when I see a buy one, get one, this thing. 40% isn't good enough, 30% isn't good enough. The moment I see a buy one, get one again from them, and I know they'll do it every 2-3 months.
Yeah. Then they get loyal to your discount and not to your brand.
That's the problem.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? So on that note, thank you, Ravi. It was, I think, terrific to host you and hear your views and life experiences. I think most people here will agree that, we should have one candid chat with you in person. I mean, it should be a physical meeting. It'll be more fun to hear your different parts of the life in detail. And all the people here, as an entrepreneur, you could be a tech guy, a coder, AI guy, ML girl. But remember one thing, sales and marketing comes first in business. Without Danda, there is everything which is very manda. Please concentrate on sales, learn marketing from people like Ravi. Take baby steps, but do not neglect this part of the business. On this note, I'll hand it over to Naveen and Trupti and Shabnam. Thank you, Ravi.
Thank you very much. Pleasure is entirely mine, Sanket, and everybody on this platform. Thank you for having me here.
Trupti. I think they've left it to
us to close it, but thank you.
And the close.
Absolutely, but thank you very much again, Sanket, and thank you for being a patient audience.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, cheers. Bye.